there's a funneling effect where your movement starts to become more specific to the task.
You did say that there was a moment that you basically went from doing explicit instruction to your students, like telling them, hey, like do this, this, and this, and then you switched to going, okay, no, I want it to be implicit. So what is the difference between explicit and implicit, and when was what was that big switch for you?
Okay, this was meeting a guy called Nick Middleton of Zen Golf. You may see the green stage on Sky Sports, and in the Masters and the Majors, we've got a movable platform. Mike Breed's got one on his golf show, and that was born out of the coaching, our coaching philosophy, really. Nick is the originator of Zen Golf, and he gave me a call. It's like you say, I was using all this information. I was using force plates. I was using 3D, like 2008, 2009, and I was using it very explicitly. I was being successful, but when I met Nick, a call came out of the blue one day, and that phone call changed my life. I went over to Sheffield, went to the Zen studio, and we had a chat, and everything he said just made sense. It was the most amazing afternoon of my life. Nick made everything that I was doing or had done make sense. And if I reconfigured it and applied it in a different way, so in an implicit way.
Like you still wanted their grip to improve or their attack angle to improve. But just telling them like, hey, you're hitting down on it 14. You need to hit down on it 6. That's not going to be like, you got to find a way to get them to hit down on it 6. You got to be very clever as a coach, huh?
Yeah. I mean, those numbers are meaningless to most people. So don't get me wrong. It's not just aimless, just hitting balls and just be the ball. It's
you figure it out. Yeah.
It's not that. I mean, that's not going to get anywhere. And having an open mind and kind of meditating and it's not wishy-washy. It's not soft science. It's not soft. There's a very direct, purposeful intention to everything that I do and say when I'm coaching. I've got a role now. I'm director of coaching within Zen Golf. So
right.
We've been evolving this for many years, working with other people like Bill Owens, Stefan Basho, people like this, and Peter Ball in England, who's a very renowned junior coach. Keith Davids, Professor Keith Davids is the professor of skill acquisition at Sheffield Hallam. He's really the godfather of dynamic systems, which is basically the book that rationalizes how we do this, the non-linear kind of approach. So
right. I know that a lot of people ask in the comments, have you worked since you've started this Zen Golf philosophy, have you worked with any tour players or professional players that we would have heard of?
I've worked with Holly Clyburn on the ladies tour. She's in America. She's been on Mark Foster, who's on the tour before. I've worked with Mark. I've been working with Mark for a while, but he's injured at the moment. Numerous players on the mini tours. It does require a different mindset, and
because mostly people want to come to a coach and say, hey, what am I doing wrong? How do I fix it?
Most people want to give me the pill. It's a generation of instant gratification, and people want to be fixed. Give me the fix. There's a lot of people out there who are professing to have that fix and say, you do this and you're going to get better. And really, I question what learning's taking place. And it's just that my learning's taken me on a different pathway. So, and something that I found, I mean, my business dropped off. I mean, when I changed my philosophy, my missus thought I was crackers. She was like, Marcus, what are you doing? It's like, even though I was getting results, it didn't fit with people's ideals of what a golf lesson should be. So they're hitting the ball better, and then they don't book in again. It's like, it's kind of, well, Marcus, this has totally changed. Last week you were telling me, or not last week, but last month you were telling me to do this, and now you're telling me to play around, and use balance this, and do this, and it didn't kind of fit a lot of people's ideals. Golf lesson should.
Right.
I noticed a bit of a drop off, but then ultimately it's gone the complete opposite direction over time, and I stuck with my convictions and my belief.
Once you started thinking the other way, it'd just be impossible to teach a regular golf lesson, because you tell them what they're doing wrong, they'd fix it, but like that guy has no chance a year from now of having that correction stick.
No, there's no automaticity to what he's doing. No, it's not autonomous. It's not. He's not really at the heart of his learning. He becomes dependent on the coach, and that coach dependency is it's quite dangerous. Yeah, I mean, how's the player supposed to? He can't have the coach with him all the time. So
right.
And how does that guy know if he's doing it right or wrong? And so that self-correction, the ability to self-regulate is the key word. We all have to be able to self-regulate. I'm just upskilling people with the tools to enable them to organize themselves. I want them to become their own coach effectively. And so I don't see people for a few months. I might see them for a day or 2 days, and then we don't need to see each other for quite a while. But I want them to go away and play. Use the driving range. It's a playground, and I don't really differentiate practice and play. I think we're always playing. We're just playing. It's how you perceive the environment you're in. If it's you could say it's practice, but I think the terminology is really important. I think that the self-talk is very, very important. The language we use, you often hear grind spoken about a lot, and you talk about I'm working hard, I'm grinding it out. This is a sport. This should be fun. This should be engaging. This should be playful. We should be like children in a playground learning. This is not something that we're not sat at a desk grinding something out, and we are. It's fun. So, and we know when we're having fun, we're learning. The brain absorbs. So,
I was thinking about what's his name, Wesley Bryan, who made the PGA Tour, and when he got out of, I think it was South Carolina or something, like he didn't immediately make it out on tour or whatever, and then he spent I think like 3 years doing like one of the hottest golf trick shot Instagram channels. And I don't think I'd be interested to ask him, but I don't think he would have made the tour without that kind of detour in doing all those trick shots. Like every day going out, having to do something wild on like an exercise ball or bounce it off of 10 things and then hit it on the range. Like I think that was doing all those things basically gave him the skills to be able to go out and take whatever comes at him on the tour and start making like a lot of money. Like I don't know. I don't think if he had just like gone straight and done to the mini tours, I don't know if he would have had as much success.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the ability to adapt is key, and that develops that. What that does is that creates resilience. It's robust. You are able to adapt in the chaos, and I think that's key. I think what you were talking about earlier about how the body organizes itself is really important. Adding the variability, particularly what you were talking. Because some people they may question the approach because there are physics to this. I mean, we've got to understand there is geometry, there is physics, and for 1 second, I'm not saying that I don't look at it from an analytical standpoint, and I don't look at. I can see what's going on. If some guys, I don't like to use golf terminology, but everybody knows
like massively over the top or flipped or something.
Yeah, like that. I don't use swing playing generally in that context. Right. I don't use this terminology because it just adds more confusion. But I mean, there's been studies done. The one with the cricket bowlers, the cricket bowlers running in. When he marks his run up, it's kind of a routine. It means something to him, but in actual fact, in respect to his performance, it's really meaningless. I mean, they did foot tracking, so they tracked the steps, and they found that for the majority of the run up, there was a very high variability. But the last few steps, as he ran to the crease and then released the ball, they were almost on top of each other, test on test on test. And this was high-level bowling. And so there's a funneling effect where your movement starts to become more specific to the task. And so
like what I was saying with the Hall of Fame, how there's every different kind of Jim Furyk or a Matt Wolff, all and everyone in between.
But as they come into impact, you're going to see some similarities because the golf club demands that. There's the affordances that I was talking about earlier. The golf club has the properties of the golf club. It's got a sweet spot. It's got loft. It needs to be presented in a certain way. It needs to be delivered in a certain way. So there's physics to this. And then but what's really interesting about the cricket bowler is they move the umpire back. So they change the environmental constraints. They move the umpire back by about 2 or 3 paces, and then the guy started no balling, and his release pattern started to go, and his line and length went, and the variability continued. So they changed the environment that he was using to calibrate his movement to, and cue his movement, and his movement patterns went. So, and it's a bit of a trick. It's a bit of gamesmanship. Batsmen do it in cricket. They get the umpire to move, and they're trying to throw the bowler off. And I've spoken to a few high-level cricketers, and they use that method, but they employ that, but they didn't realise the science behind it when they were doing it. We need the variability to enable us to calibrate. We need to know, to find out where we are, we need to first of all move to somewhere different, and then then we can self-reflect and work out where we were before. So
one thing I wanted to ask you is, so if you have a student where, because I see this a lot at the Be Better Golf schools and with people, if you have a student where like you put them in a certain constraint, right? Like let's say they're making a really beautiful golf swing and making great contact like in your sandbox, right? Yeah. But then as soon as they get on the mat, they're just not transferring it over to doing it when they don't have that constraint. You know, there's just, or, you know, we always hear about like doing something one way on the range and then not doing it on the course. What do you think is the key to get it to kind of port over to the actual golf swing and doing it away from where?
The thing is, what we're creating are memories. We're creating memories which have movement patterns attached to them, and that memory of a golf shot has a movement. So you know, without even kicking a football, what it feels like to curve a ball. And even if you just started to, without a football, if you just start to make the moves, I would start to recognize what your intention is. So you would only have to start to move in a certain way, and I would recognize what you're trying to do. So your movement that you're making has a direct intention connected to it, and that intention it has imagery. You've already visualized the shot, and what you're doing is you're starting to match patterns that you recognize, and this is developed through practice, particularly through variable practice. And so I would, in respect to ball position and things like this, I will get them to strike the ground in different places and get them to experience and to reflect on what their body's doing in order to strike the ground in different places. So I'm just getting them to understand how they control and manage their low point in their swing, but purely through differentiation. So that's basically through moving their focus of attention, playing around with the ball position. So moving the ball back, moving the ball progressively forward, a long way forward, and getting them to self-reflect on how the body is adapting to meet the demands of the task. So they're seeing how their body is reacting to shifting the low point instead of intentionally asking the body to move to achieve a desired low point. So it's a reverse engineering process. It's and then listen to the body. So amplify the pupil's self-awareness, switch their attentional focus onto the things that really kind of are the meaningful, I would say the critical variables of this movement, the things that are really, we'll switch them onto that. So as a coach, we need to identify what are these performance variables that they are adapting. And then we play around with those constraints and throw more chaos in and make them work harder.
How do you know that you've added too much chaos? Like, where's the tipping point?
Yeah, you're going to start to see failure, and you start to see them. You start to see
they're not even close to doing it. Yeah.
Stress levels go up. You obviously see the outcome, and so straight away you're going to see it. You're going to get a stressful response. You know then that the challenge point's too high. You know that you've got to adapt. You've got to change the approach. And again, that's the coach. That's the role of the coach, to be able to read the situation and to have the skills, the knowledge base to be able to change the constraints, the right constraints. We're working with the bodies. We've got a mind-body motion philosophy. So changing the body's constraint system. So I use a lot of holistic therapies to allow the person to ultimately explore their own body.
What's an example of a holistic therapy? What do you mean?
Oh, well, I mean, I use lots of different things, but yoga, so lots of physical,
Okay.
Lots of movement based. Because what we're doing is we're developing we're enhancing the movement maps. So we've all got movement patterns, maps that are recognizable and are available to us. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to explore that map. I'm trying to make it more expansive, more elaborate. So they become more in tune with how they're moving. Everything just becomes more highly attuned.
I did an interview one time with a guy who caddied for about 5 years with Bubba Watson, and everybody talks forever about how Bubba never had a lesson, and he's just this homegrown talent and all this other stuff. And what this caddy had told me was that what people don't realize is Bubba, the one thing that Bubba is very, very diligent on is balance work in the gym. Like he's always on like a upside down Bosu ball, like catching tennis balls they were doing, and he does a lot. Like he doesn't like lift weights or stuff like that really, but he does a lot of balance work, and I think that type of thing and that awareness is kind of leads to his ability to hit some of those shots that we've seen, the massive shapes and stuff.
Yeah, it's all part of, I would say, a bit what we're doing really is perception training. A big part of that is nervous system training. So I mean, the body's not interested in your golf shot. The body's interested in not falling over. So the golf swing is basically one big counterbalancing act. And we're trying to counterbalance the inertia of the golf club, and we're trying to use the inertia. So consciously, there's a cognitive kind of cue. We've got an intention. There's a conscious intention there that we're going to swing, and this is where I want to go. And there's kind of there's patterns you recognise, but you see, if you don't use pressure plates or 3D and things like that, there's things that are going on that you can't see with the eye. So I always look at centre of mass. So I use a 3D system for centre of mass, and I look at pressure plates. So I look at how the body's moving the centre of mass, and if the system becomes is under stress. So if that centre of mass is moving in a way where the body's off balance, it's going to start to make counter movements to recorrect its balance, and that's higher on its list of priorities than your golf shot. Suddenly, you might start to get kind of aberrant movements where you're thinking, geez, where's this coming from? When you start to look at somebody moving their centre of mass, and like you said with Bubba with his balance work, his body's always in a state of, if you like, calm. There's no fight, flight, freeze response because it's not bracing itself. How often do you see people swing and they stop and they brace, and they're probably just compromising the centre of balance quite a lot, and the body's just, its self-preservation kicks in. So that sympathetic nervous system response ramps up, and there's an autonomic response, and suddenly now we kind of, it's out of our hands consciously. This thing's subconscious, and it's trying to stay upright, and it's going to start pulling that weight towards the body to try and and then we start to see these movements that we give golfing terminology like over the top and all this kind of stuff, but it's a reaction. Everything's a reaction to something. It's a movement solution. So if you've got to go right back to why is this thing happening, because it's either there's obviously some intentional aspect to it. There's also some physiological aspects as well. What's the body doing that's creating these counter movements, and so a lot of people, I think balance is key. So that's why I use a lot of balance work, proprioceptive training.
What are some of the type of proprioception things that you have your tour players or other players work on when they're away from you, and you're like, hey, this is like almost like a vitamin. I want you to do this regularly. I've seen you do stuff where they're kind of doing balance work and touching the club to different areas. Like, what do you have them do regularly?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to create a very highly stressful situation for these guys because they can hit a golf ball standing on the head.
Yeah, so it's still athletic, yeah.
Tour player they can do anything. They can play well despite any interference or whatever they've been said to them. They're thoroughbreds, but you've got to really challenge the system, and so I use wobble boards, I use spiky balls, I use self-myofascial release, I use balance discs, a lot of eyes closed, a lot of movement, and starting the golf swing from different places, just like the cricket bowler, and like you were talking about all the Hall of Famers. the movement starts to funnel. So you can start the golf swing in different places, but there's a natural funneling of the movement, and it starts to refine itself. And if you throw the body into certain places, it starts to self-correct and self-organize. So the more you do that, the more able you are to adapt. And so when you then give the body a very simple task, the nervous system is calm. So we play, there's no, the cortisol levels are low, there's no stress. It's kind of, you're reacting, you're in a coherent state. The golf club is just an extension of the anatomy. It's like a prosthetic limb.
Well, that's something I wanted to ask you about, because I know that there's like proprioception, like basically like if I close my eyes, I have the ability to touch my finger to my nose, or I kind of have this awareness of where the parts of my body are. So is there something that's called that would be like extra proprioception, or like something where, because it seems like the pros have an awareness for where the end of their tool is, or the blacksmith has the awareness for where the end of the hammer is.
Yeah.
What do you call it when it's outside the body, but you have an awareness of exactly where it is? Like if I closed my eyes and had, this golf club in my hand, and I wanted to touch the phone with it, I would have a general awareness of where this is, and I could kind of do it, Yeah. So what is that called?
I can't remember.
That skill.
It's the space is called your peripersonal space, and you have an awareness.
You're adding something to it.
Yeah, so you're aware of that space in close proximity. You can sense somebody walking behind you. The body has like you just said, it has an ability to know where it is in space, providing we get out of its way, and we let it happen. It does require a leap of faith. It's almost, swinging carefree and tension-free is easy to say, but if there's tension in your golf swing, there's tension for a reason. So if you just try releasing tension, there was a reason there was tension in the first place, and we need to find the underlying reason. Maybe the forces that you're using in the golf swing aren't conducive to allow you to swing without tension. Maybe the tension is needed. So if you take the tension of a golf swing that's not using forces efficiently, that's an inefficient golf swing. If you throw a ball, you're going to throw a ball and the arms, it's like soft and it's loose and it's just reacting to the forces created from the pivot of the body and the momentum that you create, the angular momentum. And it's like a blur. You don't really think about how you let go of the ball. You don't think about how you throw it. It just reacts to it naturally targets. It's reacting to your intention. So there's a simulation taking place. There's an attentional focus, and everything action starts to follow the vision. And you start to use the ground. And you start to use your body. You start to shift, you start to rotate, you start to push the ground, you start to use these forces, and then the end of the chain, the distal elements of the chain, the hands, the wrists, they start to react. And so, there's a study with EMG sensors on the neck and the shoulder and the upper arm, and so that's testing for muscular activity. And as you'd expect, the higher level of player, the less muscular activity there is, the less muscular tension there is. What they didn't test on that was what the rest of the body was doing, but you would assume that the forces the player's creating are a lot more efficient, and so there is no requirement, no demand on the upper torso, on the shoulders, on the arms to create.
Yeah, I've seen where like experts in anything, regardless of what it is, there's a smoothness to the movement of an expert of anything they're doing, and then to a novice, there's always a stochastic and kind of chunky Frankenstein kind of way that they do it, and then there's this graceful smoothness to, like let's say like a guy who like has been folding pizza boxes for 10 years. The way he does it is real smooth, and the kid who just started yesterday, he's like, this it's like parts and pieces.
I see people on a driving range, and I think it's pretty much worldwide every day, and it looks like it's the equivalent of taking the first driving lesson every single time they go to the driving range. It's like mirror, maneuver, single time. They are giving the body a direct set of instructions, and they're trying to conform. They're using training aids They won't be there when they play golf. They're reacting to stimuli that aren't there when they play golf. It's a completely different environment. So they're reacting to a different environment. But ultimately, we're just hitting a golf ball. And this is how you can use your sense of reality, because you could be anywhere in your mind. You could be on your home course. You could be hitting a ball into the ocean. How you visualize that environment and use those constraints really affects how you react and move and create your swing mechanics. So you've got to change. You're just playing a golf shot at the end of the day. It's a golf swing, not a golf hit. We count strokes, not hits. The whole thing suggests this thing is a swing. We're not hitting at a golf ball. We're playing a golf shot, and most people have become disconnected from that shot. So, and most golf balls don't fly straight. So it's a big thing that I mean to have a 0-0 spin axis is kind of not that easy, and not easy to do it consistently. So there's always going to be, if someone's trying to hit the ball straight, I mean, you often you'll see a high handicapper or a novice player, if you like, and they're trying to hit a ball straight, and they give themselves a wide area of error.
Mm-hmm.
They go, oh, if it's within that area, then I'm happy. But they could hit 10 balls, and a couple might go pretty straight, 3 or 4 might fade a little bit, and 3 or 4 might draw a little bit. But because it's within that set parameter, they're happy with that. But they weren't actually using that feedback in a specific way to refine their movement, because they weren't seeing that little bit of draw or that little bit of fade. And so that's giving you information then about the face and the path, and then how aware are you of the face and the path? How aware are you of how you can influence the swing arc, and how does your body adapt to that swing arc? And it all works back. It all self-engineers back, reverse engineers back. And and so reading the feedback, most people, strike is so high on people's list of priorities. Some people, as soon as they mishit it, they turn away, and they don't. But we need to use that feedback, and we need to become disconnected from it. It's inanimate. The golf ball's just. If me and you are on a golf course and we see somebody else's ball flying, we've got no emotional attachment to that. We are the golf ball fly, and it just lands, and there's a thud, and it's like, we need to be more objective in how we see the ball fly. Yes, it's emotional, but I attach the emotion to the movement. It's a very high emotional attachment to that golf swing, and we want to enjoy the experience, swinging that club, wielding it, have fun, enjoy it. The golf swing should be enjoyed. The actual outcome, you've got to accept what happens, whether it goes how you intended, or we know it's life. We're not going to hit great golf shots all the time, but it could be the best golf shot you've ever hit in your life, but it might also not be. But if you develop patterns that you recognize through experiential training, then you start to recognize patterns, and you become very adept at just self-correcting, making those very fine adjustments to correct that ball flight. So you don't keep hitting the slice. I mean, what other sport would you continue to keep making the same mistake and accept it doesn't happen? You would make some kind of correction, and you wouldn't need to look at YouTube videos to do it.
Okay, I want to give a special thank you to Robin Matthew Williams, and tell you guys to go follow his YouTube channel. There's a lot of videos with Markus up on that you guys can see. And where can people find you for lessons and for contact information?
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Instagram's probably the best social media platform for me, at Zen Golf Mechanic. And I'm in Bawtry Golf Club in Doncaster. So my email address is markus at zengolfmechanics.com. That's the best way to contact me. And yeah, I mean, it'll be awesome. I've had a few people from the States. It's been fun. Yeah. And it's just amazing how the word is getting out there. There's a collective starting to happen, a growing consciousness of awareness, really, of alternative methods. Really, that's all it is. It's just another way of doing it. But it's gained a lot of attention, because people are seeing something different, and they're seeing the results. I mean, it's quite compelling, because we video pretty much every lesson I do. I'm pretty confident, very confident every time that you're going to experience elation, that fulfillment, that meets your needs. We all experience it differently when we hit a golf shot, but there is nothing like hitting a golf shot exactly how you intended, out the middle. It's why we play the game. And so the more people experience that, the more the game grows, the more people stay in the game, and that's what I'm about. It's about growing the game. It's about retaining people in the game. It's more about, there's a bigger picture to this. The social values of golf. It's a lifelong. It's a game for life, and it's friendships. It's just such an amazing game. I just feel so privileged to actually coach golf. It's not a job to me. It's something that I just love to do, and it's at the end of the day. Yeah, I suppose it's an altruistic approach, but we're doing it to help people enjoy their golf more. Enrichment is the key. Where it's enrich people's experience of the game, enrich their lives, and just look, if we can help people have more fun, that's what it's all about.
Definitely. All right, and if you guys want to see more with Markus on,
I'd even go to an upright lie, to an uphill lie slightly as well.
Okay. We got that here.
And now try and hit. You got to keep the ball flat. You'd have the alignment stick there, maybe a bit higher for this one, maybe 2 baskets.
Okay, gotcha.
Then you've got to keep it under those.
That would have been a little too high, but on a golf course, that would be like a world-class shot there. But I would have failed I would have hit it just slightly too high.
So you've kind of got the flying wedge, but you've got it on an uphill angle. That's the thing.
That was perfect. Be Better Golf. Go to BeBetterGolf.net/BGI. We're going to do a special thing with Markus on Beyond Great Impact, this thing that I've been working on. Thanks for watching, everybody.